Last month, Bose came out with their new flagship headphones, the Bose QuietComfort Ultras, and when they came out, there was a lot of excitement around these for the massive sound quality improvement, the big ANC improvement, the unbelievable comfort, the improved aware mode, and a ton of other features and design optimizations that really made these a strong contender for the new king of Bluetooth headphones. But now that it's actually been a month and I've been using these every single day for the past month, I have some thoughts. I found some features that I really like about these, I found some things that weren't in the spec sheets that I really didn't like about them, and in this video, I want to kind of give you a bit of a day in the life, walk through different scenarios of where I use these, and talk about the pros and cons of each, from in the workplace, to working out, to commuting, to just lounging and hanging out at home. And in each of those four environments, you have very different needs. And starting off with the first thing I do pretty much every day is I end up working. I'm in an office a lot, and for me, some people like active noise cancellation. We'll talk about that later in the video, but for me, I actually really like aware mode, so I can hear my surroundings, I can hear when somebody comes over and has to ask me a question. It's just really convenient to have that, and with these, it actually is so natural. It's really incredible. I've tested dozens and dozens of headphones out there, and these are a very solid number 2, second place, and way ahead of third place. So in first place, I would have to say is like the AirPods Max. It just feels very clean and natural. But these are almost on par with the AirPods Max. Wearing these with aware mode feels like nothing is on my head. I can hear nuanced little things like my fingers rubbing together. I can hear directions of things. It's just so clean and so incredible how natural the aware mode actually is on these. And if you wanted active noise cancellation, you can toggle it with a button just by pressing and holding. And like I said, I'll talk more about that in a minute. But the second thing that is really important to me when I'm working with headphones is the ability to connect both my phone and my laptop. So when I'm editing a video or listening to music on my laptop and I suddenly get a phone call, I can switch over. Now, these do it sort of. Like, they don't do it in the same way other headphones do it, which would be an automatic switch. These are more like manual. So you press the bottom button and it tells you what device you're connected to. And if you press it again, it'll toggle between the devices you're connected to, which is actually a pretty decent way of doing this. And while we're speaking of the controls, the side button is going to be your play pause. You can double press it to skip forward. You can press and hold to switch between ANC and transparency and your other modes that you have saved, which you can customize. And like I said, I'm going to show you that in a second. And probably my favorite control here is actually this little ridge. It's a really subtle little bump there, and that is your volume slider. So rather than having it on the outside of the face, which you can accidentally touch sometimes, this is in a very natural spot for your thumb to just kind of slide up and down and control the volume. You can also make a shortcut on the volume slider. If you touch and hold it, it can like open Google Assistant, for example, or Spotify. But of course, in a workday, the other thing is that I'm wearing these a lot. Like, I'm wearing them all day. You're talking 8 to 10 hours. Maybe I'll take them off for lunch, but these work so well for that. They're incredibly light. They're very, very soft. And I really have, of all the headphones I've worn, probably the least fatigue with these. And also they have a very gentle clamping force, so it doesn't hurt my head after wearing them for a while. And there's actually very little heat buildup as well for me. So personally, these are incredibly comfortable. And lastly, when you take them off and you set them down, they'll automatically go to sleep, so you don't have to like manually power them on and off. But a downside here is that it is quite annoying when you pick them up and put them on, just how long it actually takes for them to realize they're on your head, turn on, and then connect to your phone. Like, it just takes a little longer than I would like. And like, if you're getting a phone call, you're gonna wait till like the third or fourth ring until these are actually connected. Now, lastly, before moving to the next category, of course, a microphone test is absolutely essential for a workday. All right, so let's start off with a microphone test indoors. These, of course, are the Bose QuietComfort Ultra headphones. That's the microphone you're hearing right now. There's no echo in here. It's pretty quiet, so this is probably as easy as it's going to get, but it might simulate like a home office if you're getting on a call. So let me know how this sounds to you. But now let's go outside near a road. Say you're going for a walk. It's a much trickier environment for headphones, but let's see how well they perform there. All right, so it's a little bit breezy out here. There's obviously a lot of traffic behind me, so it should be pretty difficult for these headphones to focus on my voice, but we'll see how natural they sound versus how much compression there is and how well overall you can actually hear what I'm saying. Okay, so for the workday, these are fantastic. But next, I want to talk about how well they perform when you're working out. After that, we'll talk about commuting, flying, trains, planes, things like that. And of course, lastly, we'll talk about like in a more casual environment. But before we get to those, I want to mention, I kind of ask your help here. I'm working on a video where I'm doing an ultimate comparison of the best Bluetooth headphones, comparing these to the Sennheiser Momentum 4s, the AirPods Max. And so if you can think of any other ones that you really think deserve a spot in that video, be sure to go down and leave a comment. And of course, if you haven't already, definitely subscribe to the video so you don't miss that one. I'm so excited to come out with it. I've been working hard on it for a while, and it's going to be a good one. Now, talking about workouts, this is going to be interesting. So these are definitely not, I wouldn't say workouts their primary audience that they're targeting here, but a lot of headphones, if you're spending this kind of money, you would like to be able to work out with them. So first of all, because I said they're very comfortable, they have a lighter clamping force, that does make them more comfortable, but harder to stay on your head. First of all, if I'm doing something static, like if I'm just maybe benching or squatting, yeah, they stay in my head just fine. If I'm running, they do also stay in my head. Running, like you don't really move your head in different directions, kind of just up and down, and so they stay in my head then as well. But if you're doing anything more dynamic than that, say you're doing yoga or just inverting your head even a little bit, they definitely fall off your head. Even if you're doing like dumbbell rows, as soon as you bend over, they kind of fall forward on your head. They're definitely not meant. They don't have that kind of clamping force that'll stay on well when you're working out. In addition, they don't have a water resistance rating. So again, that's not going to be ideal if it's raining or if you're sweating a lot. Like I think they'll be okay, but they're technically not rated for that, so I wouldn't recommend it. They do, however, have Bluetooth 5.3, which gives them a nice stable connection at a longer range. So if you set your phone in the corner of the gym and you're working out, like you should be fine with these. And if you decide to run with these, the wind blocking is actually so impressive. You don't have any kind of hissing or weirdness going on, unlike the Sennheiser headphones. I was very impressed with that. They also definitely get plenty loud, like way louder than I would ever want these to get. They have very strong bass capabilities, and because you have buttons on there, you should be fine if your hands are sweaty to be able to control this. Like you don't have to worry about like a touch sensor. Buttons are super reliable. And lastly, because this material doesn't really absorb a lot of liquid, if you happen to wear these when you're sweating, they should be very easy to clean off, kind of a leathery texture. Again, should be pretty easy to use. But moving on to the third category, this is probably the bread and butter of these headphones, what I think, where they're really gonna shine, and this is the travel and the commuting category. And so there's a couple things. The big one is going to be the active noise cancellation, but let's just kind of dial it back and talk about the basics. These fold up really nicely, so they turn inward and they also fold like that, so they become pretty compact. There's a hard shell case, a relatively hard shell case, that actually does protect these, unlike, say, the AirPods Max, right? These will be nice and protected in that case, which is also compact, zips up, stays in your bag, and it does also have wires in there as well, so if you need to connect them to like in-flight entertainment, of course you have your 3.5mm port there. If you have to connect them to like the little TV screen on the back of a seat on a plane, again, unlike the AirPods Max, so that makes them pretty solid for that. That's very impressive. But the big one here, like I said, absolutely huge. One of the biggest reasons I would recommend buying these headphones, besides all the big reasons I already mentioned, would be the active noise cancellation. These absolutely crush it. It's so impressive how well they do ANC. And as you can see on the screen right here, the ANC test results, I mean, I'm comparing these to some other headphones out there. Just a general test where I play a white noise at a set distance away. It's actually the sound of a jet. And I see at which volume the headphones are no longer able to block that. Then I measure that volume, and that is how powerful the ANC is. And these are just so impressive. So if you're flying, these already check off all the boxes, like I said, for the other things you want when you're flying, but then being able to block out a lot of extra sound makes it easier to sleep, makes it easier to read and focus, and just gives you less fatigue by the end of the flight from jet sounds and crying babies and people talking. Like, these are just so impressive in that sense. But there's some other cool things as well. So remember I said there was like the little shortcut on the volume slider you can touch and hold, and you can either open Spotify or open a voice assistant. So it's nice to have like a single-handed gesture so that if you're like carrying luggage, you don't have to take your phone out and do that. You can just kind of quickly touch and hold that. So when you're in the airport, a little bit easier to kind of navigate things. Additionally, the battery on here is impressive. It's not the best out there, and I'll talk about that in my ultimate comparison video, but 30 hours should be more than enough for any flight round trip that you're gonna do. Like if you figure 14-hour flights long, 28 hours, like you don't have to charge these for a round trip from New York to South Korea. Pretty impressive, I would say. And of course, I would say they are relatively stylish. I'm not really the right person to ask with that. You can leave a comment and let me know what you think, but there's a couple different colors. I think they're pretty subtle. They don't look bad. They look pretty normal. They don't look like especially expensive or cheap, just pretty, nondescript, subtle headphones. So I think they do a pretty good job. Some complaints though, there is no speak to chat feature or quick listen feature. So previous headphones like Sony does this really well. You can just like cup the earphone and it'll like turn your music down, turn on the aware mode, and you can like hear, for example, the next stop on a train would be really useful. These don't have that, so you have to just take them off if you want that. Additionally, the buttons aren't really customizable, which I'm a little disappointed by. I wish there was a little bit more control on the headphones besides just those two buttons and the slider, which aren't necessarily customizable. But the final category I wanted to talk about is just like relaxing, hanging out. I mentioned the sound quality on these. So the sound quality has always been pretty solid, but not my favorite on previous Bose headphones, where these are surprisingly a huge improvement, really substantially better, and there's a couple reasons for that. First of all, they do have substantially better sound quality. In the past, they always had a good balance, but they were stuck to either SBC or AAC codecs, which are generally lower quality, lower resolution, whereas these are now Snapdragon sound certified, which gives you way higher resolution. And as long as you pair it with a phone capable of that, say like a flagship Android phone, then you are going to be getting way higher resolution audio that kind of makes sense for a flagship pair of headphones. And so you're getting really nice sound on here, very pleasant, very articulate. I like how natural it sounds. Can be a little bit heavier on the bass end, so you can dial that down. But again, I personally prefer having the opportunity to turn the bass up if you want for certain genres and certain songs. But if you just dial the bass back a little bit, again, it sounds very natural and overall quite impressive. In addition, they do kind of change a little bit based on your ear geometry. So when you put them on, they play a sound, like the wake up sound for Bose, and that measures your ear geometry and adjusts accordingly, which is pretty impressive. For me, I have to say, wearing these, no complaints. They sound fantastic. Some things that are interesting, we're seeing less and less like NFC pairing and other little weird features like that on headphones. Instead, Google Fast Pair is really the main way they do that. You take these out of the case, you turn them on, it just pops up on your phone, and you'll be able to pair very easily. Now, there is an app, and when you open the app, it's pretty simple. You can change the volume right there, it shows you the battery level, you can change the modes, and that's really a Bose-specific thing. They like having these different modes. You can add more modes, and each one is pretty straightforward. So if we click on the home one, that's a custom one, and if we customize it, you can choose the ANC level, you can choose if wind blocking is on, and you can choose if you want to have immersive audio, or if you want it, like, for me, I like that off. I don't really like immersion, but it's like a 360 surround sound, whatever you want to call it. Spatial audio is what Apple calls it. And so if you move around, the sound sounds like it's moving too. I like keeping that off, but I'm going to go back to aware so I can hear myself talk here. In addition, you can select the sources. You can have multiple devices, and you can choose like, okay, right now I want to not connect to my Ultra. I do want to connect to my laptop. Like, you can do stuff like that. Pretty straightforward right there. If we tap on the gear icon, you've got a couple settings here as well. You can update right there. You can set an equalizer. You can choose the self voice. So when you're on a phone call, how much do you hear your own voice? And like on-head detection, voice prompts, things like that. There's a lot of settings you can change on here, but unfortunately no way to really customize those buttons, as I mentioned earlier in the video. But kind of summarizing this little like relax category, unfortunately there's no USB-C audio playback. So you can play through the 3.5mm port or by Bluetooth, but you're not going to be connecting a USB-C cable and playing through that, which for me is a little bit of a letdown. I like using that on my computer, but it is what it is. I'll just have to charge these every 30 hours or so. Otherwise, for relaxing, very comfortable, great sound quality, not a lot of lag, and I think these are definitely solid for a lot of things. Overall, I would say these are my go-to for travel now, for sure. They're also fantastic in the workday, but they're not my number one choice for working out. If you really want to work out a lot, there are some other headphones that might be a little more optimized for that. But of course, there's other good headphones out there too. So if you want to see that ultimate comparison I mentioned, definitely be sure to subscribe, and I'll link it right here as soon as it comes out. So if you see it here, click on it now, and you're not going to want to miss that. It's going to be pretty interesting.